Hello, my name is Cassandra and I am here to do my February wrap. So these are the books that I read in February. They are in no particular order and I cannot quite remember what I gave them as ratings on Goodreads, so I'm sort of going to go with just my general thoughts on them, if I like them or not. Bear with me, it's my first Booktube video. So, I borrowed 2 books from the library and read them. The first one being The Princess Saves Herself in This One by Amanda Lovelace, and the other one being 3 Things About Elsie by Joanna Cannon. Now, The Princess Saves Herself in This One is a poetry collection, and the poems are in the style of sort of Tumblr poems with a lot of sort of page breaks, which was, I can't say that I know much about poetry, but it wasn't a style that really worked well for me. I sort of thought that a lot of the poems were quite nice, but a lot of the poems sort of seemed plain, I guess. So I think I gave it like an alright rating. I would say that I thought it was an okay poetry. It was okay. I can't speak for how good the poetry is because I don't know that much about poetry. But to me, my enjoyment, it was okay. 3 Things About Elsie I really liked. It is about a elderly woman who is in a retirement home. She is, I think, she's 80, she's above 80, and she discovers that there is a man who moves into this retirement home that bears a very striking resemblance to someone that she knew like 40 years ago. No, I'm kidding. 60 years ago, when she was in her 20s. And the book sort of unravels from there, and you find out why this bothers her so much, and you find out if this man is the man that she thinks it is. Elsie also clearly has dementia. She has trouble remembering things, and the caretakers at this home think that she might be even too ill for this retirement home, that she should be moved to one that has more care or like more opportunities to help her, which is basically in Elsie's mind that they just move her to some sort of containment center and wait for her to die. But as I said, I really liked it. It was really good. I read this because I just saw it at the library, and I know that Simon of Savage Reads had read it and really liked it. So I thought I'd pick it up and see if my tastes are similar to Simon's, and in this case, it was. Which I'm happy about, because he seems like a really nice dude. Now, in terms of books in Swedish, I have read 2 this month, which are Populärmusik från Vittula and en man som heter Ove. Now this one in English is called A Man Called Ove, or A Man Called Ove, I guess. What this one is called in English, I don't know if it's translated to English. Sort of my amateur translation would be Popular Music from Vittula. Let's start, like I did with the library books, with the one I liked the least. Now, this one is quite popular in Sweden. It received the August Prize in the year 2000, and it is revered as quite a good novel. Now, I liked the topic. It's about people living at the very north of Sweden, at sort of the border to Finland. So there's a lot of talk about being Swedish versus being Finnish, and this area that he lives in has a history of being considered both Swedish and Finnish, and sort of an area all of its own. I know very little about the area, so I thought this would be a good book to read. I thought I'd enjoyed it. I thought that I would enjoy it, and to some extent I did. Basically, I thought the story was alright. There are chapters, and the chapters are quite independent from each other, but they follow him chronologically, going from sort of, I think, 6 or 7 up to being 17 or something. And I was quite disappointed because I felt like it was quite an abrupt ending. It's an abrupt ending, and then you get an epilogue of him sort of 20 years later, and it's 2 pages of him telling where they all went in the end. I would have liked to know more, because I thought the disparity, or the change from where he was at 17 and where he was in the epilogue was too big not to receive any sort of information in between. And I didn't really like the writing style, but I thought that the stories within each chapter was pretty good. Now, A Man Called Ove is something that I've seen a lot on Booktube, and people really like. So I picked it up basically because of Booktube, which is funny because I watch English Booktube, and they read the English version of Fredrik Backman's books. Oh, I will say, popular music from Vittula is by Mikael Niemi. So I see a lot on Booktube about Fredrik Backman and his books. So I thought I would pick them up, which it's funny because I wanted to pick a Swedish author up because I had seen him on English-speaking Booktube. But I was not disappointed. I picked up Beartown, or in Swedish Björnstad, because of Booktube, and I really liked it, so I thought I'd go on and read some more of his books, which I was so not disappointed by. I really like Beartown, and I really like this one. This one is about... Ove is quite a grumpy old man, and he's quite... he's focused on self-reliance, and he is... self-reliance in terms of like being able to handle your own home and being able to do things without the aid of like a computer or experts. So for example, you would be able to repair something that has broken in your house, or being able to cut your own lawn, for example. He is quite heartwarming, even though he is quite manly. He is quite a manly man, and I'm not that pumped to read about manly men. But he is really heartwarming, and I really took to him as a character. I could really sort of jive with him, I guess. Like I don't know, I really liked him. He was relatable without me in any way being able to relate to him. So I really liked the book. The next 2 books I want to talk about are the first 2 books in the Shattered Realm series. Now, this is a continuation, or as I call it, a spin-off series to the 7 Realms books, which is a young adult fantasy story. I really, really liked the 7 Realms story. The fantasy was handled quite well, and the politics of the world was handled quite well. The world building was great, the characters were great, and the last book in that series I read in one day basically because I loved it that much. So I started the continuation, or the spin-off, or whatever, and I didn't love it as much, unfortunately. Now, the first book is Flamecaster. Oh, the series is by Cinda Williams China. The first book is Flamecaster, and the naming of the book is quite apt because Flamecaster as a word shows up throughout the book. It's worth noticing. Remember that till later. And there is insta-love in this book. And when I sort of became aware of the trope of the insta-love, I was like, yeah, I'm quite annoyed by that, like when that happens. This is such an extreme case of insta-love that I really didn't like that part. I liked the characters in this book. It follows mainly two characters, a girl and a boy again. But I like them individually, and I didn't feel like the love story was necessary. I didn't feel like this book was as strong as the Seven Realms books. So I was quite apprehensive, but I owned the first three, so I thought I'd, in for a penny, in for a pound, I'd continue. So I read the second book, Shadowcaster. I liked Shadowcaster a lot better than I did Flamecaster. My problem was that Shadowcaster, as a word, does not show up in this book. So I feel like they're naming the books in this series after like a theme, because the next two novels are called Stormcaster and Deathcaster. But Shadowcaster never shows up in the book as a word, as a concept or whatever, so I didn't like that. It felt cheap, and that sort of reinforced my general view of this series in that it's not as strong as the original. Now, in this book, you follow mainly two other characters than in Flamecaster, and I like those two characters a lot more and a lot better, and I felt like with this one you're sort of widening the perspective beyond those two characters that were the focus of Flamecaster, which strengthened it and made it all like a lot better. So after this one I'm quite happy. I look forward to moving on and reading the next two in the series. I don't know if the series is complete after Stormcaster and Deathcaster. I hope so. I had some problems with the pacing in the Seven Realms series, so I hope that the pacing of these will be better, and by the pace of the second book of Shadowcaster, I think it's gonna be. So I'm quite excited for that, see how that turns out. Alright, so this is me coming at you the day after I filmed the earlier footage, because I realized that I had forgotten to talk about the audiobooks that I read. So, I read 3 audiobooks in February. The first one being A Very Large Expanse Sea by Tahara Mafi. The second one being An American Marriage by Tajari Jones. And the third one being The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, A Very Large Expanse of Sea is a young adult contemporary novel about a Muslim girl wearing a hijab who around 2002-2003 she moves high school, starts a new high school where she gets to know and eventually starts a relationship with a white boy. And then it sort of chronicles how she is received at school and how their relationship is received. I liked it a lot, and I especially liked the love interest, because this white boy was very gentle and sort of nice and kind, and also I liked how he had his own story arc. He wasn't just, there to be like a generic white boy as a love interest. he had some depths and he had his own problems, and she had her depth and her problems, and the book mainly focuses on her, which I also liked. But the main thing I liked was him, the love interest. And all in all, I really liked the book. It was a really good book. The second book I read, An American Marriage, did not know all that much about it going in, and it chronicles how a black couple in America, they get together and they get married, and then he is accused and convicted wrongfully of a crime, and then he goes to prison. And then it sort of deals with how their relationship, how they handle him being in prison and him being away, how they both handle that and sort of the troubles in between that. Now, I liked the book. It was very pleasant, like an entertaining and a pleasant read, but I didn't agree with all the choices that they made. I found that I couldn't really relate to either character, and therefore I didn't relate to their relationship. So I wasn't like sold on it. But the story as a whole and sort of the message that it sent was alright, or quite good. I would say I enjoyed it. Now, the third book I read was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I've heard all good reviews. I have not heard any negative reviews of that book. And going into the book, I thought that like, oh, it's gonna be, I'm gonna like it fine, but I'm not gonna love it as much as everyone else. And I do feel like I don't love it as much as everyone else. I feel like other people that I've listened to have said so much how they love it so much and it's like the greatest thing, and some of them put the book at like a high on their top 10 books of the year, etc. I don't think I would do that if I were to rate my 2018 books. I think, especially since I read it in 2019. But I liked it really. I really liked it. It was really good. It was really entertaining. I read it in 2 days because it was difficult to put down. It was really good, and I would highly recommend it to other people. I understand why people are sort of shoving it down everybody else's throat, because it is that good that you want everybody to read it. But I don't feel it was as amazing or as mind-blowing as I've seen other people say about it. I have also read another book by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read After I Do, and I think that I related more to that book than I did to The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I think I have more in common, like I'm not a movie star, so I think I had more in common with After I Do than I did with the Evelyn Hugo book. Now, the final book that I read is Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. This is the third book of the Farseer trilogy, and I don't know if you can tell from my face, I loved it so much. Oh, I really liked this book. It was so good. I have liked the entire Farseer trilogy. I love the main character. I love the supporting characters. Didn't care for the romance particularly. But this is the third book and the sort of conclusion to that initial trilogy. She has 13 more books in this sort of world, and I have already ordered the next trilogy because I want to read it like right now because I loved it that much. Yeah, it's good. It's real good. Alright. Alright, that was it for February. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.